Top news of the hour. News number 1. China and Russia's power play. How they're undermining the U.S. at a shocking summit. China and Russia are challenging the influence of the United States and the West on the global stage through the bloc of developing countries known as BRICS. This group, which comprises Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is currently debating expanding its membership to increase its power and reduce the dominance of the U.S. dollar. However, as the BRICS summit takes place in Johannesburg, it becomes evident that there are deep divisions among its members regarding their level of alignment with an assertive China, despite their shared goal of increasing global clout. The absence of Russian President Vladimir Putin, who faces war crimes charges from the International Criminal Court, and the unexpected absence of Chinese President Xi Jinping from a business forum during the summit highlight the complexities surrounding their relationship with BRICS. While both leaders assert that the summit is not about creating bloc confrontation, there are concerns about China's intention to shape BRICS into a pro-China bloc. India, Brazil, and South Africa, who aspire to remain non-aligned, worry that an expanded BRICS could dilute their own influence and place China at the forefront of an anti-Western axis. As the BRICS bloc aims to position itself as an alternative to Western-dominated international groupings, discussions about creating a new currency to challenge the U.S. dollar for global trade, known as de-dollarization, have surfaced. However, experts argue that this idea is unrealistic as there is no other currency that possesses the same attributes and convenience as the dollar or euro. Consequently, BRICS countries are instead focusing on conducting more trade in local currencies instead of using the dollar. The evolving nature of BRICS has led to questions about its impact on the United States. Jake Sullivan, the U.S. National Security Advisor, reassures that the U.S. will continue to have relationships with all BRICS countries, although some may be stronger than others. He emphasizes that the U.S. does not view BRICS as a geopolitical rival, but rather as a diverse collection of countries. Despite the absence of Putin due to the war in Ukraine, the conflict remains a tense backdrop for the BRICS summit. Although Ukraine has attempted to distance other BRICS nations, especially China, from Russia, their efforts have been largely unsuccessful. The other members have largely avoided directly condemning Russia, while China and India have actually increased trade with Moscow since the war began. For Russia, the summit presents an opportunity to demonstrate diplomatic influence and maintain close allies, despite its growing global isolation. However, the war has had significant economic implications for BRICS nations, particularly in terms of increased food and energy prices that disproportionately affect poorer countries. The BRICS summit raises important questions about the shifting dynamics of global power and the potential consequences of a more assertive China and Russia. It is clear that the expansion of BRICS and its aspirations for increased influence on the global stage are not without challenges and internal divisions. As viewers, it is worth contemplating the implications of BRICS growth and the potential for alternative power structures in shaping global governance. What are your thoughts on the matter? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section below. News number 2. Drama at the UN. U.S. exposes the disturbing silence of Russia and China. The U.S. has condemned China and Russia for their failure to condemn North Korea's recent attempt at launching a military spy satellite into orbit. The U.S. argues that the UN Security Council has failed to hold both countries accountable for their obstructionism, highlighting their indifference towards North Korea's use of ballistic missile technology. Analysis: the U.S., along with Albania, Ecuador, France, Japan, and Malta, called for an emergency meeting at the UN Security Council to address North Korea's failed attempt at launching the Malajong-1 reconnaissance satellite. U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield criticized China and Russia for their lack of condemnation, pointing out that their inaction undermines efforts to address North Korea's pursuit of nuclear weapons. There are concerns that the Chalima-1 rocket used in the failed launch is equipped with a ballistic missile engine, violating UN Security Council sanctions on North Korea's use of such technology. North Korea's representative at the UN, Kim Song, defended the satellite launch as the country's right to self-defense. He accused the U.S. and South Korea of escalating tensions on the Korean peninsula, turning it into a potential area for large-scale conflict. Kim's attendance at the meeting marked the second time this year that North Korea participated in a UN Security Council session, indicating the severity of the situation. Russia's ambassador Vasily Nebenzia diverted attention from North Korea's actions by blaming the U.S. and its allies for escalating tensions in the region. Chinese ambassador Zhang Shuang echoed North Korea's claims, criticizing the U.S. for its hostile policy towards Pyongyang and citing the deployment of nuclear submarines to South Korea in July. However, the majority of the Council's members opposed the North Korean satellite launch. Anthony Renna, an expert with the Sino-NK Research Group, suggests that China and Russia's refusal to condemn North Korea's actions is a result of their long-standing alliance with the country. Both countries have repeatedly vetoed proposals for new sanctions following North Korea's missile launches. Renna argues that China and Russia are using this approach as leverage against the U.S. instead of advocating for a cessation of missile launches in exchange for reduced joint military exercises between the U.S. and South Korea. Conclusions: the failure of China and Russia to condemn North Korea's satellite launch raises concerns about their commitment to addressing nuclear proliferation and regional stability. It also highlights the recurring pattern of these countries protecting North Korea from significant repercussions. The international community must reflect on the implications of inaction and consider alternative strategies to address North Korea's missile program. What are your thoughts on China and Russia's response to the North Korean satellite launch? Do you believe their refusal to condemn these actions undermines efforts for denuclearization and regional stability? Share your opinions in the comments below. News number 3. Are we being too harsh? The controversial debate on labeling Russia, China, and North Korea. The recent guidance issued by the UK's Foreign Office, instructing government officials to refrain from labeling countries like China, Russia, and North Korea as hostile states, has sparked controversy and criticism. This change in terminology aims to refer to these nations as hostile actors instead, supposedly aligning with the language used by the UK's global partners. However, this shift in wording is seen by many as both inadequate and appeasing towards Beijing, particularly given the track record of these countries imposing threats and engaging in hostile actions. Critics argue that the new guidance reflects a reluctance to acknowledge the true nature of these nations and the dangers they present to the UK and its interests. China, for instance, has faced increasing scrutiny due to its attempts to exert control and influence over various sectors of the UK's economy, such as nuclear power, universities, and technology. The All-Party Intelligence and Security Committee has warned about the potential risks and threats associated with such involvement, urging the government to take swift action to safeguard national security. Ignoring these concerns and downplaying the hostility shown by China and other states only undermines the seriousness of the situation. The notion that countries are not inherently hostile, but simply engage in hostile actions, is criticized as an exercise in political correctness that fails to accurately depict the realities of international relations. By substituting meaningful terms with vague and diluted jargon, governments risk minimizing the severity of the threats posed by these states. It is crucial for nations to openly address the challenges they face, including the hostile activities of others, and not shy away from stating the truth. Comparisons can be drawn between this situation and the concept of Orwellian political speak, where language becomes manipulated to conceal the reality of circumstances and serve ulterior motives. In an attempt to avoid causing alarm among their own people or upsetting those they deal with, governments resort to creating terms that lack substance and fail to reflect the genuine dangers and complexities of the situation. In the case of China, it is absurd to argue that it is not a hostile state, considering its assertive actions on the global stage and its concerning influence over critical areas of the UK's infrastructure. The current guidance issued by the UK's Foreign Office, advising against the characterization of countries like China, Russia, and North Korea as hostile states, is a contentious move that has raised significant concerns. It is imperative that governments use accurate and accountable language when addressing international relationships and threats. Dismissing or downplaying the hostile actions of these countries only serves to diminish the seriousness of the situation and jeopardize national security. Inevitably, this issue prompts viewers to consider their own thoughts on the matter. What do you think about the Foreign Office's new guidance? Is this a legitimate step towards maintaining diplomatic relations, or does it hinder the acknowledgement of genuine threats? Share your opinion in the comments below.